Greetings and welcome, minions, to another episode of Let's Play Dungeons 2: A Game of Winter. Alright, let's move on to the next mission, the Fall of the Wall.
Barthas crossed the cave and slowly approached the strangely glowing crystal. He had no idea as to what it might be. Like any good hero in a dungeon, he just couldn't keep his greedy little fingers to himself and touched the crystal. As he did, a brilliant light filled the room. When the light faded again, Barthas lay badly wounded on the ground. With his last breath, he stammered, "For the watch," and gave up his life. However, his actions had set something free. Like many other heroes before him, he had inadvertently released another great evil into the world. The corrupting evil. It had long rested, unaware that two of its siblings were already awake and fighting for supremacy. Its servants awoke with it, the undead. Now they rose from their graves. Skeletons, zombies, ghouls, frights, Nosferatu, all following their vile master's plans. As well as they could. Undead aren't exactly known for their intellectual prowess, and are therefore sometimes referred to as the Mindless Army. They didn't forget Barthas' corpse. The corrupting evil's creatures carried his corpse forth and laid it to its final rest. Then they turned their attention to the living, the North Watch. The wall would fall, and the mindless army would head south, to where the corrupting evil's siblings were already waiting.
Right, so we have our setup. Another evil, another throne, and another race of evil monsters that we can use. The undead, which would explain why we couldn't control them last time around.
Evil awoke. Oh, wait a minute. The ultimate evil? Oh no, that was the main game. Yesterday's news. And so the corrupting evil awoke. The all-too-curious Barthas Snow had released it from its crystal prison. It felt its brothers to the south, and it would meet them very soon. But first there was unfinished business to take care of. The icy wall to the south protected the realms of the Alliance. It had to be destroyed so that the mindless army could march. The huge ice wall was insurmountable, but an old gold mine would play an important role in its destruction. The corrupting evil had to gain control of that mine. Before that could happen, however, a mighty army would have to be raised, which of course required a thriving dungeon.
Well,
Immediately, the corrupting evil set out to build a dungeon and raise an army of combat-capable creatures. How does one build a dungeon? The corrupting evil already knew that, of course. It had no need of extravagant tutorials, but immediately went into action.
Well, we might as well. Now, the undead. The undead are probably the most resilient of all the races in that they are very difficult to kill. Extremely difficult to kill. In fact, sometimes you actually kind of want to get rid of some of your monsters, but for now, let's focus on actually getting something going. Like some gold. Now, the undead will always resurrect, but you do need a graveyard for that, which I don't think I have right now. I have mana tombs, alchemy lab, and a final resting place.
Creature nurturing evil had erected a final resting place. Now it could hire some undead in good conscience, knowing full well that they would have a comfortable home for their brittle bones.
Yeah, you don't have to build anything in the final resting place. The undead take care of that themselves. They can use their final resting places interchangeably, although depending on what level they are, they will need a slightly bigger one. So you have to keep that in mind when you are planning your dungeon and all that. Right now I can only get bloodsuckers.
A bloodsucker had risen. These fly-by-night creatures were cowardly and didn't even do any work, but when paired with an undead guard, they could make an insidious combination.
Yeah, bloodsuckers are the most feeble of units. They are not particularly fearsome, but they do drain life. So they are useful in that way. Now I need more gold, so if you slowpokes would be so kind as to actually get that going. Alright, so we have Chasmander and Growlite. Those names are vaguely familiar to me. Now, as you can see, there's 4 different gravestones around the central pit here. That's where the undead raise up from. Let's get some frights.
A fright had risen. The cutesy impression was misleading, for this traumatized spirit was a psychopathic creature who listened to and followed the deadly and bloodthirsty promptings of its teddy bear. The vile evil found these endearing qualities indeed. In addition, it also haunted the mana tombs, where it either produced mana or researched new spells.
Yes, that's indeed what it does. Now, much like the monsters, there's a bit of a cooldown in between hiring one, but they do raise up immediately. There's just one really big problem with the undead, in that they cannot heal. Or, more technically speaking, they can only heal when they're in the final resting place. But that's an incredibly slow process. I mean, they can still fight for as long as they are moving. And it's indeed quite hard to keep them down. And you do get a spell that will allow you to make them a little bit more effective at getting back up. But that requires level 2, which I don't currently have. So we'll just have to wait. Now next up, the Alchemy Lab. Which is essentially the workshop.
Here, the crying to itself evil skeletons would in future brew up nice new gizmos such as traps and the like for the dungeon. Would they discover the Philosopher's Stone in the process? Well, unlikely. Very unlikely.
Yes, very unlikely indeed. Because they are A, not that smart,
Payday.
and B, they're skeletons. What use have they got for potions? Just get a move on. Alright, they need a alchemy table. So let's save up some money for that. So I can actually get some skeletons, because skeletons are essentially, well, they're the early ranged unit slash melee units you could use. I mean, zombies are definitely the tanks you can get early on. The zombies are, however, quite slow, whereas skeletons are a lot faster. Now, I've never really used skeletons in melee myself, but that is a possibility. Alright, let's get an alchemy table. So we can produce clay pots, so we can start upgrading stuff. But first of all, we need some skeletons. A bone warrior
had risen. These bony cronies were armed with rusty swords and would prove most useful to the vile evil in the alchemy lab.
That much is true. Especially considering what they can turn into later, you kinda want your skeletons to be, you know, ranged units. At least their alchemy tables are quite compact. And there's lots of room for clay pots. Although that does beg the question, why do I need to pay my undeads? But I will. I mean, what do the dead need with money? Let you see, we have some setup so of the level 1 resting places, which is fine. I mean, I kind of wish I had a little bit more control over how they place these, because this is terribly inefficient. And later on it can be a bit of a hassle, because you have to actually have room for the bigger ones, which is, let's see, I think the level 2s are 2x2s and level 3s are 3x3s, if I remember correctly. But it can be very difficult to place if there's all these haphazard ones lying around. Now, these resting places need to be cleaned up every now and then. So that's also something you have to keep in mind, which is what you need your Forgotten for. Alright, we got some clay pots. Can I research anything? I can make bigger piles of gold. Let's get that started. But I will need a laboratory. And a cemetery. The cemetery will allow me to get my undeads back to life. There is the laboratory, is the place where the brain biters work. In this case, the zombies, but you know, same difference. I should really carve out a place for that. Let's see, where is the entrance? That's over here. That's currently closed off. That's good, so we won't be bothered. Let's get the lab set up over here. Now I see 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Let's get it that size. Most likely I will not need that size, unless I'm misremembering how big the implements are in the laboratory. But you know, let's go with the assumption that I am right about that. Right. Let's get that going. I mean, I might as well get more alchemy tables. Because I will want a few more skeletons. Let's see, skeleton is 1 population points. I mean, I call them skeletons, they are bone warriors. But you know, same difference. Alright, do I have enough mana for research? Let's get the research going.
The dastardly evil had long hidden itself from its creatures, but now the time had come. Since it could not march to the front itself, it had raised an undead general, someone who could throw themselves suicidally into the fray. Panther Snow was the new lich general.
What happened to me?
Varthus was still a bit unsteady on his feet, not yet accustomed to the rotting flesh. But all too soon, perverse evil's commands rained down upon him.
Yes, master. I will do as you say. The wall must fall. The North Watch must die.
Who wouldn't appreciate staff that helpful? The sounder engineers around here could certainly learn a bit from him. Hey, don't turn it down!
But yes, indeed, we have Bath the Snow. He's quite useful. Quite a strong unit in the middle of everything. Just a fair point though, you don't get Bath the Snow when you're playing the Undead in Skirmish. Just in case you were hoping for an all-powerful main unit. No. You don't need him, but you know, it's a kind of a pity that none of the other races have heroes like that, because it gives it a little bit of personality, especially since Bath is here, being only newly resurrected. He's not entirely loyal. Well, he just will not take any guff from the narrator. And he is completely loyal, but you know, loyalty will only stretch so far. Alright, so he can improve rooms that he walks into. Neat. That doesn't really change anything for me. Alright, now laboratory. Come on, finish the laboratory. I want to make stuff. Alright, let's get the retreat going. Alright, laboratory.
The crazily laughing evil hastily erected a laboratory. Here, zombies would in future do research. Stupid buttons, you know. Nevertheless, this room held an incredible potential for improvements to the undead creatures.
That much is true.
A new spell had become available. Retreat allowed the cowardly evil to order all of its creatures within the area of effect to immediately retreat to the throne room.
Right, so the test station can only be used by zombies, or brain biters in general. But you'll only have zombies at the start anyway. So of course we'll want to get effective digging, so we can get much more effective digging. It's nice and convenient that way. Right. Let's get all this gold tagged and ready for getting out of here. And let's get a couple of zombies on the field.
Zombie had risen. This brainless creature worked in the laboratory where it researched numerous improvements for the undead army. They were pretty decent melee fighters as well.
Well, that's really the only function, so yeah. Be stupid if they weren't good at that. But at least we can now research stuff. In this case, just improving weapons and armor. Alright, so skeletons can gain the ability to switch weapons, get more stronger, improve their range, which really indicates that skeletons and all that are really just meant for range attacks. Whereas the zombies, of course, can get very, very tough to kill. Now, the ghosts, in case my frights in this case, I find a little bit difficult to use properly in-game as it is. In their purpose, much like any of the other magical units at the start, is to distract and crowd control a little bit by taking possession of the enemy, well, stunning them. This, however, is tricky to execute because frights tend to be fragile. And blood drinkers, well, they are weak. They really need something bigger to distract from the fact that they are present. So, well, they can keep themselves alive by drinking the blood of their enemies. Which of course is cool. Alright, I need one more creature. What can I raise? Let's get another skeleton.
Near the Great Wall lay an old gold mine. It would be essential for the destruction of the wall and had to be taken. At a wave of the keeping itself at a safe distance evil's hand, the undead creatures marched off. Yet they didn't get far, as there was no exit to the upper world. However, the corrupting evil's hard-working minions were certain to change that at any second.
Yes, I'm certain they are, but not right now, because this is the end of this episode. Thank you all for watching. See you all next time.